Ready? All right, folks, welcome in. It is the night of the Girls Regional Co-Championship. It is the Lady Mavericks, number 1 in the state, number 1 seed in the region, set to take on the Independence Patriots. And Independence comes in. They've lost 3 games on the season, 19-3. Haven't lost since a loss earlier in the season, about midway through to Logan, another ranked team. So expecting a good one here tonight as the state tournament berth is on the line, and I have somebody with me here who's very familiar with that. It is former boys head coach, 2-time state champion coach Matt Savage. Matt, how you doing?
I don't know, but that sounds good.
Talk about a game like this here tonight. You know, you have the lead in almost a week where you played your last game. You're coming into this. Nerves have to set in a little bit. You know how much is on the line, but you know how good your team is.
Yes, you know, and the hardest part is getting them to play under control, like playing the game they've played all season. You know, that's the hardest part, is get them to understand you don't have to give extra. You gave 100% all season. So there's no reason to try to give 110%. Give everything you've got the game you're playing in now, because what we've done all season works, so let's continue to let it work. And that's the hardest part, because it's a long time between games. You know, there's a long stretch there, and keeping their focus, because it's a long season. And, you know, when you come to the end, you know, it's like, hey, we battled all season for this moment. But then you don't want it to be bigger than what it is either.
Yeah, it starts to bottleneck up a little bit here. You start to feel like, okay, you know, we got to win from here on out. It's not like back when we had the sectionals and you could lose one and still make your way through. You got to win everything here from this one, so that tonight, you know, it's win or go home. How do you think Sherry or them could handle just keeping them grounded? What do you need to do?
Well, you know, Sherry, that helps in itself. She's been there, done that, you know, be it a few years ago like we all have, you know, but she understands what it took to get there and what it takes to get it done, and that initially helps out, because when they see her presence of not nervous, not going crazy, not, you know, and they feed off that, because your players feed off of how you react to stuff. And so I think that's going to be the first goal, is for the way the coaches handle it. I think the players are going to follow through, and Sherry's definitely done a good job with that.
Well, you have a team that's this young. They don't have any seniors on there. I don't remember. You had a team. You took a state championship. I know Shad was a senior that year. I think you had Cam. Not a whole lot of seniors. A lot of juniors and sophomores on that team as well. Talk about just having a young team.
You know, and that was our first time there.
Yeah.
And so even in the seniors, it was the first time there, and they had to. But, you know, this young team here, you know, it's a negative and a positive. You know, it's a negative because they haven't been there. You know, they haven't done that as a group. But it's a positive because they haven't done that. You know, they don't know what's at stake to a certain extent. Because once you get down there, it's like, oh, I got to come back. Like, I got to do that again. You know, and some of them haven't done that. And so to them, it's like, hey, let's get down there and see how it is, you know. And so it's positive and negative, you know, and you kind of weigh it out to see how they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I remember when we won those 2 state tournaments back when Sherry was playing. That team was so young, I'm not sure they realized how big of a deal it was at the time. And you have a little bit of that, you know, you're a freshman or a sophomore. Hey, this is easy. We can just do this every year.
Yeah, and that's what you got to be aware of, you know. You know, and that's what we were afraid of the second state championship we had. You know, at the very beginning of the season, we know we have a good team, but how do we control that? And it's hard. You know, it's a hard control. Thankfully, we had the boys that they kind of controlled a lot of it themselves, you know, and that's what I'm hoping, you know. I mean, they got a few older girls here that have done it before, and I'm hoping they'll step in and be able to help out with that part of it.
You think it's different or harder when you come in with those expectations? You know, the first year you guys won, but that second year everybody knew who you were, knew how good that you guys were. Does this, the expectation, having that number 1 target, make things harder, or is it just different?
Different, because, you know, the group we had of seniors that second year, they loved it. You know, they fed off of it. Like, yeah, we're number 1. Knock us off. You know, and that was their – but you got to have that mentality. And, you know, so, you know, I always tell – you know, people are like, you know, I think I'd rather be a little bit of the underdog. Not me. I don't want to be the underdog. Like, I want to be the one that's got the chance to win it, you know, and I think that's where they're at. I've talked to 3 or 4 of the girls, and their mindsets are just – they're good. They're in a good place right now. And I'm excited to see what they do tonight. I think it's going to be a good game, and, I mean, I think our girls are going to be on top at the end.
This girls' team was a lot like y'all's team. It's a lot of homegrown kids, right? We haven't had not a lot of transfers come into the area. Talk about just winning with your own kids. That's not even as common anymore as it once was.
And definitely now.
Yeah.
It's getting less and less common, but there's something special about it. And Monroe County is a smaller community. Not just Peterstown, Linside, or Union. The county in itself is just a smaller community, and they rally behind each other. And so when you're playing with people, even if you were from Peterstown and Union, you knew each other. You knew you were going to play, and there's a connection that some schools don't have. And so to me, it makes it a little more special as a coach, as a player, even as a fan. There's something more special about it when it's your group.
Yeah. I was seeing some pictures today. I think it was a picture of Kendall when she was playing Little League at Peterstown. And, it's the same teams they have over there playing now, basically same jerseys. And you just look at that and say, hey, these kids have all come up just through the two feeder schools. They've played each other. They've been playing with each other all these years.
Yes.
And it's good to see them together. And your team, of course, was the same way. Those guys had played together for years.
Yeah, and it makes practices easier. It makes games easier. I mean, it's just the whole gamut of things.
For a long time, basketball just didn't have the weight that it carries now in the county. You guys kind of got us started that state championship run, and I think every year since then we've had at least one team make it up to states and win some games up there. What do you think about just how much basketball has grown in the county over the past few years?
Well, first of all, I love it. I absolutely love it. And, the year before we won the state championship, we had a great season. Mm-hmm. Didn't end the way we wanted. We were 17-2, great season. And that's the conversation we had in the offseason was, it's about time Monroe County. I'm glad it's a football school. Like, I love football, and I'm glad they're doing great, and I want them to continue to do great. John does a great job with them, all those coaches, the players. I mean, it's a wonderful program, but it's nice to see basketball get up there with them. And basketball has made a name for themselves, not just in the county now, but in the state. People, when you talk about James Monroe, they know who the boys' teams are and they know who the girls' teams are. And it's not just one-sided. But, I was in Charleston just the other day at a doctor's appointment of all places. And a guy sitting beside me said, "You from James Monroe?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know much about their basketball program?" Well, we ended up talking for 30 minutes, and it's just nice because he knew the games. He even remembered the girls when they won it. He was at those state championship games, and he was talking about our boys and we won and how classy they were and how they carried themselves and stuff. And it's just nice to see that when, around the state that basketball is actually something recognized in Monroe County now.
Yeah, I was somewhere at a basketball game a little while back, and it was a middle school game. And I think it was in Princeton, and they were listening to the Princeton high school game, or one of our games was on too. We were away somewhere. Anyway, they were talking about, I can't remember who we were playing, and they said, "Well, I don't really care for either of those two teams." And I thought, man, that might be the best compliment you can get from somebody else is when they start to not like you because you're beating them and you're winning games.
The second state championship, we were trying to pick up tougher games. Yeah. And we called everybody in the state. Like, we called everywhere, and nobody wanted to pick us up. And in the long run, I told the boys, that's a compliment. Nobody wants to play us. Like, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
And I think the girls are starting, the boys already have that trouble to an extent. And I think the girls are coming into that same ship. It's going to be tough.
I remember you were seeking out those tough games.
Yeah.
Going to Beckley, playing in a little general tournament, playing there were a bunch of other tournaments at the time. You guys were filling up a lot of the early season with tough games. The girls did that this year.
Yes.
The boys have continued doing that in the years since. And I think when you're single A or double A, I think sometimes it makes it hard to convince, a top-rated 4A team to come play you, although sometimes they will, sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
But you think that's the case? They're scared to play a really good team from a lower bracket?
Yeah, which I understand to an extent.
Yeah.
To an extent, it's you don't want to lose to somebody in a lower class, but the coaches that know good basketball, they're not worried about that. They want a good basketball game. Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee you that the boys' team and the girls' team, any coach in the state that schedules them, they're going to get a good game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's double A, single A, whatever, they're going to get a good game out of these groups. And because both groups are a blast to watch. They're fun.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely are. Sherry's definitely done that this year. I know she's taken a few games on short notice that were trips to play ranked teams.
Yes.
sometimes 2A, sometimes 3A, teams you might see in the state tournament even. And it's like, yeah, we'll go play them. I don't care if they see us. So I really like that this year with the girls especially, just being willing to go play anybody anytime.
Yeah. Kelly and I were talking at the beginning of the season when he was trying to get the tougher games scheduled and stuff, and he said, if I lose a couple games, that's all right. Like, what's fun? Winning by 50 or getting beat by 10.
Yeah.
When you're playing a good game. And Sherry has that same mentality. Where do you want to meet at? Where do you want to play? Okay, let's go. And I love that. And I think that also instills something in your players. When they see the coach willing to play wherever, whenever, well, then the players are like, hey, let's go. Like, wherever we're going to go.
Yeah, and going into those hostile environments at their place and playing tight games, I mean, I think that just gets you ready for what's going to come down the line later, as opposed to, you're beating anybody by 50 who you can get to come. Yeah. The Greenbrier tournament was a good example of that this year. You go up there, you're going to see Greenbrier East, you're going to see, who was it, Bridgeport.
Yep.
Some good teams you're going to run into from higher classes, but every player that I've talked to this year has pointed toward that tournament, and that weekend at the Greenbrier is a weekend that they felt it changed how they came at the season a little bit. They grew together as a team, and I think it was a great trip.
Yeah. Well, one of my good friends is one of the assistant coaches on Bridgeport, and they were excited to play James Monroe. They didn't care about it being a AA school. They didn't care. They knew it was going to be a good game. And we had every chance to pull it out, but it didn't matter about the win or loss. It was a good game, and it was a good environment, and the boys grew from that, but even better, they were able to enjoy some moments a little bit off the court as a team that they'll remember forever, and to me, that's just as important as what they did on the court up there, what they could do together.
Yeah, we're about getting ready to start this one, but you can think back to those state championship runs, all those great nights. What was one that just sticks out to you?
I'll tell you, all the games were great. But unfortunately, both state championship runs, we had a couple coast games with Greater Beckley. But for the most part, we were able to just kind of run the table. And I'm not fussing about that. It was a fun run. The biggest thing for me was the boys and the young men that were involved with it and the coaches. We became so close. I talk to those boys all the time. And to me, that's what I enjoyed the most. When we were at the state tournament, going out to eat with them and just listening to them and them joking around with us. And, to me, that was just as enjoyable as anything else, and they, now I'm glad they were able to make memories of a lifetime. We were able to make memories of a lifetime, and it was wonderful, but it was more about being around the young men, and that was an awesome thing for us as coaches. And so I hope the players felt the same way. But, we still keep up with them, and it's awesome. That's the awesome, or should be the awesome point of sports at high school, is that side of it. But, I could sit here all night with you and go through some games, but, we got a game to play down here, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, we got a big game. James Monroe ladies taking on the Lady Patriots of Independence. Coach Matt Savage, it was a great talk, and I'll let you get back down there and enjoy the game, but we'll talk to you later.
I appreciate you, man.
We'll be right back.
Anything can happen. Either way can happen. It's not bad. No.
I don't. As long as we can stay out of any kind of foul trouble.
I said that from the very get-go.
Air Supply Heating and Cooling is the area's only Amana dealer offering full service, repairs, maintenance, and installs. Amana offers a lifetime compressor warranty and a one-time unit replacement. Air Supply also offers after-hours repair service. Call today for a free estimate.
R.T. Rogers Oil Company and Precision Delivery have many kind and knowledgeable long-term employees in our Hinton office who account for transactions and dispatch fuel and explain and educate about our many products, such as our wall heaters and also our fireplace logs, which are designed for residential space heating, and we also have Rinnai tankless water heaters available. We provide many different types of fuel storage tanks along with an experienced and trained crew that will be installing them. We will then make safe and timely deliveries to these storage tanks. Our long-term employees make deliveries and also install HVAC units and install generators, while Precision Delivery transports fuel in 6 states. So, call us for a quote or delivery.
GNC Flooring, specializing in hardwood and laminate. We offer existing floor sanding and refinishing and free estimates. Call 304-646-1031.
We're Moco shirt signs and embroidery. For Southern West Virginia, we can handle all your needs. From signs to apparel to uniforms, we offer all the services that you're looking for. Choose Moco, yeah, Moco for embroidery and more. Call 304-772-4444.
Moco Shirts, Red Oak Shopping Center in Fairleigh and Main Street in Union.
Introducing new frosted sodas and floats. Only at Chick-fil-A.
Everybody come clap your hands. Oh, don't you know when you dance, you've got to smile or you can't cry. Try it a while, you'll be surprised.
Float.
It's a rock and roll.
Pop. Spin. And slide like an original. The original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich and new frosted sodas and floats. Only at Chick-fil-A.